Can one truly insulate the delicate self from the slings and arrows of external judgment, or are we forever condemned to the emotional whims of others? This profound question, a silent echo in countless hearts, haunted the formidable mind of Carl Jung. He understood implicitly that modern society, in its relentless pursuit of conformity, often subtly coerces individuals into a collective unconscious, a state where questioning the herd, resisting its currents, becomes an act of defiant rebellion. To live unexamined, to accept without genuine challenge, is to choose a path of least resistance, one that too often culminates in the barren landscape of regret and pervasive mediocrity. This video is not a mere compilation of conventional wisdom. It is an expedition into the depths of Carl Jung's psychological insights, a deliberate extraction of a practical manual designed to fortify your inner citadel against the relentless onslaught of external negativity. Prepare yourself, for the knowledge you are about to assimilate is nothing less than transformative, a blueprint for reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. The first principle, often overlooked in its deceptive simplicity, is the law of the inner mirror. It posits that the intensity of the hurt inflicted by another's words or actions often correlates directly with an unacknowledged vulnerability within oneself. This is not to absolve the aggressor, but to illuminate the mechanism of the wound. When a barb finds its mark with stinging precision, it is frequently because it has struck a chord already resonant with an insecurity, a fear, or a self-doubt that dwells within. The principle functions as a psychological alarm system, directing attention inward rather than outward. Consider the philosophy of the Stoics, who centuries before Jung understood that external events hold no inherent power to disturb. It is our judgment of them that causes distress. A seemingly innocuous comment, if it touches upon a deep-seated belief of inadequacy, can unleash a torrent of pain, while a direct insult, if it clashes with a deeply held conviction of self, might simply glance off without impact. This phenomenon was vividly illustrated during the Roman Empire's tumultuous decline, where ambitious senators would often project their own anxieties and moral failings onto rivals through public accusations, and those with a strong sense of personal integrity and a clear conscience, however unpopular, remained largely impervious to such verbal assaults, while those plagued by their own misdeeds crumbled under the weight of even fabricated charges. In today's hyper-connected world, where digital discourse often devolves into anonymous critique and public shaming, this law is more relevant than ever. Social media comments, career feedback, or even casual remarks from friends can trigger profound emotional reactions if they tap into our unexamined wounds. To apply this, meticulously identify those recurring criticisms or situations that cause disproportionate pain. Instead of immediately retaliating or withdrawing, sit with the discomfort and ask yourself, what part of me believes this to be true? Then, diligently work to strengthen those internal foundations. Avoid the temptation to externalize blame, for true resilience is forged in the crucible of self-awareness. Another crucial tenet is the principle of the unconscious projection. This rule reveals that much of the negativity directed at you is not, in fact, about you at all, but rather a reflection of the other person's unresolved issues, frustrations, or shadow aspects. Humans unconsciously project their own disowned qualities, their repressed desires, and their inner turmoil onto those around them. When someone lashes out with unwarranted aggression, criticizes incessantly, or attempts to belittle you, they are often expressing an internal struggle that they cannot confront directly within themselves. Jung himself emphasized the significance of the shadow, the unconscious aspect of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with. This shadow, if left unintegrated, can manifest as negative projections onto others. The story of Narcissus, captivated by his own reflection, serves as a timeless metaphor. Often, those who cast the harshest judgments are merely staring into a distorted mirror of their own unmet needs or fears. We see this dynamic play out daily in corporate environments, where a manager's micromanagement often stems from their own insecurity about control, or in family dynamics, where a parent's overbearing nature might be a projection of their unfulfilled ambitions. When confronted with unfair criticism or blatant disrespect, pause and observe the aggressor. Is there a consistent pattern to their behavior? Does their reaction seem disproportionate to your action? Instead of absorbing the negativity, consider it a data point about their inner landscape. Recognize that their emotional outburst is likely a symptom of their own unaddressed pain. Do not internalize their projections, for to do so is to carry their burdens. Instead, maintain a firm but detached posture, allowing their negativity to dissipate without finding a foothold within your emotional space. If you're enjoying this perspective and feel that this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications so you don't miss any content that will further empower you. If you feel a growing restlessness, a need to break free from old expectations and build a life guided by your own truth, know that this quest is not in vain. Is your authentic self preparing for the freedom and fulfillment that await you? There are powerful principles and practices that can illuminate this path of autonomy and self-affirmation, empowering you to live with an unshakable clarity and peace. In the pinned comment, we have made available resources that were carefully crafted for souls like yours, ready to live their most powerful personal revolution. Now, we shall delve into the strategy of emotional non-reaction. This isn't about suppressing feelings, but about mastering the immediate, knee-jerk response that often fuels the aggressor's fire. When someone seeks to provoke, their primary goal is to elicit an emotional reaction, for your distress validates their perceived power. Deny them this validation. The principle dictates that emotional control is a shield, deflecting the intended impact of hurtful words or actions. It operates on the understanding that emotional reactivity often stems from a lack of self-awareness, allowing external stimuli to dictate internal states. Consider the ancient masters of martial arts, who understood that to react impulsively to an opponent's initial attack was often to fall into their trap. True mastery lay in anticipating and redirecting the force rather than meeting it head-on. Historically, figures like Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, embodied this principle. He famously urged himself to remain unperturbed by the folly of others, understanding that his inner peace was his ultimate dominion. In modern social interactions, this manifests in countless ways, from maintaining composure during a heated debate at work to responding calmly to a passive-aggressive remark from a family member. When confronted with a provocative comment, take a deliberate pause before responding. Allow the initial surge of emotion to pass, and then choose your response, or lack thereof, from a place of calm deliberation, not reactive impulse. Do not engage in arguments that are designed solely to ensnare you in an emotional trap, for your silence can be a more potent rebuttal than any retort. The art of the psychological boundary dictates that true protection lies not in avoiding all interaction, but in establishing clear, inviolable limits around your emotional and mental well-being. These boundaries are not walls built of defensiveness, but permeable membranes that filter what is allowed to enter your inner sanctuary. Without them, you become a psychological open house, vulnerable to every stray thought or negative intention. This concept aligns with Jung's notion of the ego's protective function, differentiating the self from the non-self. The myth of Persephone, drawn into the underworld despite her mother Demeter's desperate pleas, highlights the vulnerability when boundaries are breached. Her temporary subjugation served to re-establish a natural order, even if through hardship. In personal and professional relationships, this means clearly communicating what you will and will not tolerate. It involves understanding that saying no is not an act of rejection, but an act of self-preservation. In the workplace, this could mean declining to take on excessive workloads that lead to burnout or setting clear expectations about your availability outside of working hours. In personal relationships, it might involve limiting contact with individuals who consistently drain your energy or engaging in conversations only when you feel emotionally prepared. Be explicit about your boundaries, both to yourself and to others, and be prepared to enforce them with unwavering consistency. Do not apologize for safeguarding your peace, and understand that those who truly respect you will honor your limits. Another powerful mechanism is the leverage of dispassionate observation. This approach transforms potentially hurtful interactions into opportunities for psychological insight. Instead of being emotionally entangled, you adopt the detached stance of a scientist examining a phenomenon. This allows you to analyze the behavior, language, and motivations of others without internalizing their emotional content. This principle echoes the objective stance often adopted in psychotherapeutic settings, where the observer helps the patient to understand their own patterns without judgment. The historical accounts of Machiavelli, while often misconstrued as purely cynical, demonstrate a keen understanding of human nature through meticulous observation of political maneuvers, allowing him to anticipate and counter potential threats. In the contemporary landscape of negotiation or conflict resolution, the ability to observe without emotional bias is paramount. By stepping back, you can discern underlying agendas, power dynamics, and communication styles that would otherwise be obscured by emotional static. When someone attempts to undermine you, instead of feeling hurt, mentally catalog their tactics. Are they interrupting, using passive-aggressive language? Are they attempting to invalidate your experience? This shifts your perspective from being the victim of an attack to the analyst of a strategy. Train yourself to see interactions as data points, not personal assaults. This allows you to respond strategically and intelligently, rather than react emotionally and impulsively. Finally, consider the cultivation of the sovereign self. This principle posits that ultimate immunity from hurt stems from a deeply ingrained sense of self-worth and an unshakable connection to your authentic essence. When your identity is not derived from external validation, but from an inner reservoir of purpose and integrity, the opinions of others lose their power to wound. This aligns with Jung's concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming one's authentic self, unburdened by collective expectations. The enduring wisdom of ancient philosophical traditions, from Eastern spiritual practices to Western existentialism, consistently points toward the imperative of self-actualization as the ultimate shield against external vicissitudes. Figures like Siddhartha, Gautama, who achieved enlightenment by transcending the illusions of the external world, exemplify this profound inner liberation. In the modern pursuit of personal fulfillment, this means investing in your passions, aligning your actions with your values, and consistently seeking opportunities for growth that are genuinely meaningful to you, rather than conforming to societal pressures. Actively pursue endeavors that nourish your soul and align with your deepest values. Do not surrender your authentic self for the fleeting approval of others. For your truest strength lies in your unyielding commitment to who you genuinely are. Until now, we have established the foundational pillars of emotional resilience. You have learned to recognize the inner mirror, understand unconscious projections, and master the art of emotional non-reaction. But this is merely the defense. Now we shall venture into the territory of proactive fortification. The forthcoming principles are not for the faint of heart. They reveal how to actively cultivate an internal environment so robust that external negativity simply cannot penetrate. The alchemy of empathy and detachment is a sophisticated tactic that allows you to engage with others' pain without becoming consumed by it. It recognizes that genuine empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, is crucial for meaningful connection. But boundless empathy can leave you vulnerable to their emotional turbulence. The principle dictates that you must cultivate the capacity to both deeply understand another's suffering and simultaneously maintain a healthy emotional distance. This is a delicate balance, akin to a skilled surgeon performing a critical operation. They must be intimately engaged with the patient's condition, yet emotionally detached enough to perform their task with precision. Jung's emphasis on the collective unconscious and archetypes suggests that we share fundamental human experiences, making empathy possible, but our individual journey requires a defined ego boundary. Think of the ancient Greek physician, Hippocrates, who approached illness with both a profound understanding of human suffering and a rigorous scientific methodology, separating personal sentiment from clinical observation. In challenging relationships, where you might be dealing with someone consistently prone to emotional outbursts or victimhood, this tactic is invaluable. Instead of internalizing their distress, you can acknowledge it with compassion. Offer support if appropriate, but refrain from allowing their emotions to hijack your own. Practice active listening, truly hearing what others express, but then consciously choose not to absorb their emotional state. Offer a kind word or gesture, but resist the urge to fix their problems if it means sacrificing your own peace. The paradox of vulnerable strength is another advanced concept. It teaches that revealing certain aspects of your vulnerability, strategically and genuinely, can disarm potential aggressors and foster deeper, more respectful connections. This is counterintuitive to the common belief that one must always present an impenetrable facade. However, true strength often lies in the courage to be authentically human, including acknowledging your own imperfections. This aligns with Jung's emphasis on the integration of the shadow, bringing forth aspects of oneself, even the less desirable ones, can lead to wholeness and reduce the need for defensiveness. Consider the historical example of a great leader who, in a moment of crisis, openly admitted their own fears or doubts, not as a sign of weakness, but as a demonstration of their shared humanity, thereby galvanizing their followers. In a professional context, this might involve admitting a mistake you've made and learning from it, rather than trying to conceal it. In personal relationships, it means being honest about your feelings, even if they are difficult, without resorting to blame or manipulation. Choose wisely when and to whom you reveal your vulnerabilities. Not every person is deserving of such trust, but with those who are, it can forge bonds of authentic respect, rendering them less likely to inflict intentional harm. Avoid superficial displays of weakness, which can be perceived as manipulation. and instead practice genuine, courageous transparency where appropriate. Another tactic is the strategic use of the unspoken word. This involves understanding that silence, when wielded deliberately, can be far more powerful than any verbal response, especially when confronted with attempts to provoke or demean. It is a psychological refusal to engage in a battle of words that is already lost before it begins. This echoes the wisdom found in many Eastern philosophies, where silence is considered a powerful form of communication, conveying a depth beyond mere words. The legend of the Sphinx, who posed riddles and remained silent in the face of incorrect answers, highlights the power of the unsaid to compel deeper thought and eventual defeat. In a meeting where a colleague attempts to bait you into an unproductive argument, a calm, unwavering silence, perhaps accompanied by a steady gaze, can convey a complete lack of interest in their provocation, effectively diffusing their efforts. When someone makes a cutting remark, resisting the urge to respond immediately allows their words to hang in the air. Often, highlighting their own negativity more than any counterargument ever could. Employ silence not as a sign of weakness, but as a deliberate choice to withhold your energy from unproductive exchanges. This is a subtle yet potent way to assert control without uttering a single syllable. Finally, we come to the mastery of reframing reality. This advanced tactic involves consciously altering your perception of external events and interactions, thereby changing their emotional impact. It is not about denial, but about actively choosing the lens through which you view situations that might otherwise cause distress. This principle is deeply embedded in cognitive psychology, which recognizes that our interpretation of events, not the events themselves, largely determines our emotional response. We have journeyed through the intricate landscape of emotional resilience, beginning with the foundational understanding that hurt is often a reflection of internal vulnerabilities, and progressing to the advanced tactics of empathy, strategic vulnerability, the power of silence, and the art of reframing reality. By embracing these principles, you begin to dismantle the invisible chains that bind you to the opinions and emotional whims of others. You are forging an inner sanctum, a place of inviolable peace that external negativity cannot breach. This is not about becoming unfeeling, but about becoming conscious, about choosing your responses with deliberate intent rather than reactive impulse. It is about recognizing that true freedom lies not in the absence of external challenges, but in your ability to control your internal landscape regardless of the storms that rage around you. This is the path of the individuated self, the journey toward profound emotional sovereignty. In the comments below, share which of these advanced tactics you find most compelling and why. If this journey of self-mastery resonates deeply with your spirit, consider subscribing to the channel to continue unraveling the profound secrets of human psychology. And if this knowledge has brought you value, a simple like is a powerful affirmation of its worth.